Jean Shaheen, the Democratic Senator from New Hampshire,
the special counsel may be disciplined
Rosentein.
or removed from office only by the personal action of the Attorney General. The Attorney General may remove a special counsel for misconduct, dereliction of duty, incapacity, conflict of interest, or for other good cause, including violation of departmental policies. The Attorney General shall inform the special counsel in writing of the specific reason for his or her removal. Now, as I understand, Mr. Rosentein, in this matter, you are actually the one exercising hiring and firing authority because Attorney General Sessions is recused. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And at this point, have you seen any evidence of good cause for firing of Special Counsel Mueller?
No, I have not.
And have you given the special counsel full independence from the Justice Department to conduct his investigation?
Yes, Senator, and I appreciate that question. At the last hearing I attended, I explained it would require a long time to explain exactly why. I'm confident that he has full independence. The short answer is, though, that regulation, as you may know, was written and implemented during the Clinton administration under the authority of Attorney General Reno. I know the folks who wrote that. They wrote it to deal with sort of situations, and I am confident that he will have sufficient independence, and it's certainly theoretically possible that the Attorney General could fire him, but that's the only person who has authority to fire him. And in fact, the chain of command for the special counsel is only directly to the Attorney General, or in this case, the acting Attorney General. So nobody else in the department would have authority to do that, and you have my assurance that we're going to faithfully follow that regulation, and Director Mueller is going to have a full degree of independence that he needs to conduct that investigation appropriately.
And is there a record that gives him that full independence? Is that done in a letter or an order from you as the Deputy Attorney General?
Yes, Senator. It's done in the order, which I believe was issued on May 17th. And the order references the regulation from which you've read, and so that is the source of his authority.
Thank you. You mentioned in your opening comments about the importance of the budget request for 230 assistant U.S. attorneys. I certainly agree that that's important. I am concerned, however, that we still we had an en masse firing of U.S. attorneys in the country, and as far as I know, at least in New Hampshire, we haven't made any nominations to replace the person who was fired. Can you tell me how many U.S. attorneys have been nominated throughout the country?
I believe, Senator, that the President announced his first set of nominations yesterday, and I believe there were 7 or 8 in that first round. And what I can assure you is that we are moving very expeditiously, and I think that there's been some press that I think may be somewhat misleading about that. I believe we're actually going to be ahead of most recent administrations in the speed by which we're appointing U.S. attorneys. It's obviously very important to me because I spent 12 years serving as a U.S. attorney, and I know how important good U.S. attorneys are to the operations of the Department of Justice. In fact, the last 2 Saturdays spent in the department interviewing candidates for about 10 districts each weekend, and so we anticipate that by the end of the summer we'll see a large number of U.S. attorneys nominated throughout the country.
Well, I certainly am glad to hear that. It's my understanding, at least in New Hampshire, we haven't seen wholesale firing of U.S. attorneys in the way that we did in this administration. Was there a reason why every U.S. attorney in the country was fired on the same day?
So, Senator, I'm pleased to tell you not everyone was fired because I was one of the U.S. attorneys that day.
Good.
There were four who were not fired, but I was not in the department at that time. I learned about the firings after the decision had been made, so I have no insight into why that decision was made.
You mentioned in your opening statement the tragedy in Georgia and the officers who were killed, murdered. It's a reminder that those who work in our prisons do have a very difficult job that is very dangerous. And I am troubled by the fact that while the administration's hiring freeze was lifted in April, that the Department of Justice has been under a self-imposed hiring freeze since mid-February. And while there was a blanket exemption for positions relating to public safety and national security, it doesn't include the Bureau of Prisons, which is still under a freeze. And in fact, in New Hampshire, FCI Berlin, had extended conditional offers to 7 potential employees, 5 of whom were correctional officers, but due to the imposition of the hiring freeze, those positions were canceled by DOJ, so they were not able to go forward with that hiring. As you point out, this is a difficult job. Can you explain why we continue to have a hiring freeze on correctional officers within the Bureau of Prisons?
Well, Senator, I appreciate that question. I think there may be some misunderstanding about this. The Department froze BOP hiring at the headquarters in Washington and at the regional administrative offices, but my understanding is that the Department allowed BOP institutions to continue hiring up to their staffing levels as of January 22nd, which means that if people left, they would be able to fill those vacancies. So within that overall level of staffing, I believe we've left the discretion with BOP to hire for whichever positions it believes are most critical to its operations. Now, obviously, there has been a continuing decline in the number of federal prisoners, and commensurately probably less of a need.
A really important moment just now from the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Rod Rosentein. He was asked about this swirl of questions about whether the White House wants to have the special counsel Bob Mueller fired. He would be the person with that authority. He was specifically asked whether or not he sees any reason, any cause to think that the special counsel is not doing his job well, any reason to think the investigation is not going well. His direct answer was, no, I have not. And then he said Director Mueller is going to have the full degree of independence that he needs. A very clear statement from the Deputy